What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Storm all over Miami. Storm is brewing in recruiting. Miami lands a crystal ball for a coveted defensive tackle from Savannah, Georgia, Walter Mattis. We will talk about that, and we will also talk to an actual commitment, Timothy Merritt's coach at Parker High School in Alabama. This is Miami's newest cornerback commit. We'll talk to his coach. He was great, had great insight onto what makes Tim Merritt a top player and a great get for the University of Miami. First, want to talk about some folks that are rated 5-star by me, and that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-3733, 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life. They don't get paid until you get paid. All right, Pete, get in here. Talking crystal ball. As you can see, you're pulling up here the graphic. Walter Mattis, defensive tackle out of Savannah, Georgia, visited this past weekend. Crystal ball to the Miami Hurricanes by Anna Adams, who is very plugged in that part of the world. She was a Clemson writer for a long time, so she's based there in the South, and someone that I find to be reliable. Crystal balling Mattis to Miami. Still digging on the Miami side for exactly where we say we will have the bank coming this week with all the latest on all the recruits. But that was interesting coming from, I guess, behind enemy lines on this player. 88.8 rating, which puts him right on that 3-star, 4-star border, 422nd ranked player in the composite overall. So right there in that 3-star, 4-star border. He goes to Calvary Day School, smaller school in the Savannah, Georgia area. Here's a key. He is very close friends with Herbert Scroggins, a defensive end, and defensive tackle Elijah Griffin, the best defensive lineman in the country. Both of those guys are from Savannah. Both of those guys Miami covets heavily. Elijah Griffin visited this past weekend. Herbert Scroggins, defensive end, we talked about on the show. So could Miami be building a Savannah defensive line room? We will see. Pete, I know you, when we first watched Walter Mattis's tape, we talked about it off air, like, wow, that guy was pretty dang good.
Yeah, we did the weekend visitors report last week on Thursday or Friday, late last week. And if you haven't checked that episode out, a good breakdown of each of those guys who were on campus last weekend. Walter Mattis was one of them. And I had not watched his huddle. Most of those guys I had seen before, but I had not seen his tape. And I said to you after, and by the way, this is his sophomore tape that we're watching right now. So he just, had that punch, had that explosiveness, the size. It's hard to say that he's one of your prototypical 6'4", 300+ pound defensive lineman, interior lineman, but the explosiveness, you see it. You see it there off the edge, but real pop. And look, as a guy who's probably going to be an interior lineman down the line, I just really like that first step of his. And he's a load to handle, that's for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, watching the sophomore clips, we'll pull one of his junior games up, which looks like a season-long highlight, but is just his junior game. So he must have continued that domination as a junior. Competition is not the best, but what you want to see is a guy dominating competition like that. Elijah Griffin was very similar when we looked at him last week. So that's what you want to see. He's doing it. To me, defensive tackle and defensive line in general, defensive linemen basically over 260 pounds, right? Let's call them just D linemen, whether they're big D ends or D tackles. In college football, there are haves and have-nots at that position. In my opinion, that more than any other position, more than quarterback, more than wide receiver, even more than corner, the separator between the haves and the have-nots of college football is the defensive line position, especially those big guys. That's why SEC wins a championship so often. That's why Michigan, with 2 NFL defensive tackles who dominated in the playoffs, won it this year. That is why Clemson, even when they had great quarterbacks, great receivers, all that, it was the multiple first rounders on the defensive line for Clemson that allowed them to play in that SEC weight class. Florida State, when they won from the SEC, multiple defensive tackles drafted high. So to me, that's the most important position because it's just so scarce. It's hard to find these guys. There's only so many of them walking around, and it's the same schools try to get the same pool of players. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm making faces as the highlight continues to roll, D, because, stout lower half, man. There's not look, he'll continue to put good weight on, but these body types that Miami is continuing to recruit, it's juice. That's the word that I see with a lot of these guys, and he's got that big explosive butt, man. So that's, again, no Diddy, but it really pops off tape.
And look, I mentioned you want to be in a certain weight class when you're recruiting defensive linemen, right? I'm a big believer in recruiting rankings, especially with defensive linemen. Those are usually pretty accurate. What I'll say, though, is even more important than recruiting rankings, which have this guy as a borderline 4, is who's recruiting this player. OVs. To me, if you look at someone's official visit list, that usually tells you the caliber of recruit they are. It doesn't project, what they're going to be. There's a lot of things that happen, a lot of variables. But if you're trying to say who are the best recruits in the country, look at their official visit list. Look who's paying to bring these guys on campus. That is the best measure, even better than stars, which are very accurate. Usually they line up. But more than anything, official visits, watch those. For this player, he's been to Clemson. He just went to Miami. He's going to visit LSU. He's going to visit Auburn. Those 3 schools, Clemson, LSU, and Auburn, I would put right at the top of defensive tackle production, along with Alabama's and Georgia's. LSU was a D tackle drafted every year. Clemson's had multiple first rounders, had 2 good ones recently with Breezy and Murphy, have some good young ones this year. Auburn, always producing big defensive tackles and big defensive ends. So to me, that tells you what kind of player we're talking about here. Very twitchy and explosive. Even if he's not a 310-pounder, Byron Murphy was a first-round pick at 290-something. Kalijah Cansey was a first-round pick at 290. That interior pass rush, when you can't escape, you can't step up in the pocket with an interior pass rush. If the ends are flying off the edge, you can step up and still deliver the ball. Interior, especially if you're not a very mobile quarterback, that can cause a lot of problems.
And D, I'm rolling the game from his junior tape here. And look, when you watch highlights for a defensive lineman, a lot of them are of him getting upfield and getting after the quarterback, but you see him getting very involved in the run game here as well.
And active. I mean, what you're pulling up, this is a 2-minute highlight reel of a lot of plays
in one game.
Defensive tackles, some of them, they might just make one play a game and their highlight reel looks good, but then, it's the one play they made in the game. This guy's productive, twitchy. Again, we're seeing guys with this profile make it in the NFL as first rounders just because they're so explosive up the field. One thing that I'm noticing with Cristobal, a trend. I've always said, be careful recruiting the Deep South. You spend a lot of money on these guys. You spend a lot of time on these guys, and they go to the SEC, right? Been a problem for Miami. One exception I would say is, look, Nikar, small town Georgia kid. You flipped him from Georgia. That was a amazing recruiting job by Coach Cristobal, Dennis Smith, Kevin Beard. But, that's not common. I think the more common way you are going to get into these the South is through the cities of the South. For example, Birmingham, Alabama, which we just talked about with Tim Merritt, the instant reaction pod. We're going to talk to his coach today. That was Birmingham, Alabama, a big city. It's where you got Mike Jackson, who's still with the Seattle Seahawks. Birmingham, Alabama, a big city in Alabama. The 2 guys you got last year, Pruitt and McConaughey. Mobile, Alabama, big city. Kevin Riley from Tuscaloosa went to Alabama. Smaller school, goes to an SEC school. So here you're talking about this player, Walter Mattis. He's from Savannah, Georgia. Elijah Griffin, Savannah, Georgia. Herbert Scroggins, Savannah, Georgia. So if you can hit the cities of the Deep South, I think you're going to have a higher success rate at the University of Miami in terms of getting these guys to leave the SEC and come to your school. And Pete, I know you spent more time in Alabama than most Miami Cubans I know.
Birmingham's a nice place, man. They have a nice downtown area over there, and with a Top Golf and nice restaurants and stuff. So I like Birmingham, but I think I said it before. And you're really hitting the point here again. That transition is easier. It's not. There's stuff going on. It's still not Miami, but very few places are Miami, right? So, but I think it makes that transition easier where these guys coming in, they maybe have these distractions where they're from. You come from one of these country towns and there's not much going on. You come to Miami and it's a lot. So I think you're right. You're hitting it right on the head here. And I'll leave you with this on Walter Mattis, as we have this video of him repping out 225. I'm not sure, D, how many of these reps are counting at the combine, but listen, either way, it's nice to see. Look at his trainer back there. I would like to see how many reps he's got in him. But yeah, here's the video. So we'll wait for his reaction at the end. But man, I'm a big fan of this player for sure.
So excited about that potential addition. I will talk more to the Miami side to get that side of the perspective. We will do the bank this week, but from behind enemy lines, crystal ball, Walter Mattis to the Miami Hurricanes. Want to talk about some folks that are always in the Miami Hurricanes corner. That's Caneswear and caneswear.com. Florida Panthers went up 2-0 yesterday. If you're a Panthers fan, jumping on the bandwagon, been on the bandwagon, they got you covered at caneswear.com. Shipped all over the country, or you can go to the store in Davie and see it all for yourself. It is Miami sports fans heaven. If you're a Canes fan trying to get bathing suits, koozies, summer stuff, they will get you covered. They got it all. Caneswear.com. All right, shifting gears to a player who is committed to the University of Miami as of yesterday, Timothy Merritt. We did the instant reaction pod, broke his game down. Now we're going to dig a little deeper with his head coach, Coach Frank Warren of Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama. Had great insight on the player, who he is, what he can do on the field. Really enjoyed this conversation. So we will go to Coach Warren. All right, we are here with Coach Frank Warren of Parker High School, Birmingham, Alabama. Team went 12-2, producing a lot of big-time players, including Miami Hurricanes newest commit, Timothy Merritt. Coach, thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate you for having me.
Now, so listen, Alabama has been very good to the Miami Hurricanes in recent years. Miami got two players from Mobile, Alabama, now going into Birmingham for Timothy Merritt. Chevis Jackson, Mobile, Alabama native. Miami's defensive back coach goes and gets it done. What does Timothy Merritt bring to the table, in your opinion, as a defensive back at the next level?
I think he has that swagger of him as a DB, his confidence level, his athleticism, his length. He can play with anybody. He's just as talented as the top corners in the nation, I feel like. With his not a buzz recruitment, he's kind of one that's going to show you who he is, and they getting one of the hardworking kid, you know.
And when you say that he stacks up with the top corners in the nation, you know that personally because Naeem Offord, who's rated as the top guy around, is on the other side of Timothy Merritt. So one thing I've heard about Timothy is, from the coaches, is his IQ stands out. You know, he's a high IQ player. That's one of the things they liked about him. Obviously, he's been coached well. You know, he's been taught the game. What specifically, if you could just give an example or two that he does or is asked to do that you think makes him a high IQ player?
In our defense, he actually played a little bit at supposed safety last year, his 11th grade year. 10th grade year, played corner. He kind of actually moved back to corner. He's so versatile that our safety makes the calls on the defense on the coverage, and he's the guy that makes the calls for the defense on the back end. And such him being so smart, he understands what everybody does and do. So he plays multiple positions in the back end. That's what makes him special and versatile.
As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, he will be playing corner this year predominantly. Is that accurate?
Yes, and then some games you might have free moving around, but I think he's more of just a pure lockdown corner.
Now, obviously, you're trying to win games at the high school level, have done that at a high level, 12 wins last year. Not just taking off your high school coach hat and putting on your evaluator for college hat. Do you think he fits best as a safety, corner, kind of that nickel? Where do you think he fits best if you're just projecting him to the next level?
I think he's more of that, can play the nickel inside out and out because he's done it before. I think he's more, that's what makes him who he is. He can guard the slot pretty well, and he has the length to run with anybody and the speed. So I think he's more of that corner, maybe nickel kind of guy. And they ask him to do safety, he can do it. So, and he's a tough kid. He actually just benched over 300 the other day. So he's naturally got enough little mean streak about him.
Wow. And the speed, you think he has the speed? You mean, again, you've seen the high levels. You're not, it's not like sometimes you talk to coaches and they've had one great kid, in their career. And obviously it's the best thing since sliced bread. You've seen the highest level guys. So the speed you think can translate to the corner position at ACC, SEC, that high level of football.
Of course, him and Naheem competes every day, and like you said, Naheem, I feel like he's the best corner in the nation. Just not being biased, and I think Tim's, up there, not that far behind him. But actually, I believe he's the number 2 corner in the state. So I feel like I do have the number 1 and 2 corners in the state, and I'm not just me being biased. It's just the truth and the amount and the numbers. That's how I feel.
Now, Alabama, I mentioned earlier, has been great to Miami in recent years. 2 kids from Mobile, Alabama. I don't know if you went over there and played against them, but Cole McConaughey, Cameron, Bobby Pruitt, both guys played really well for Miami in the spring. Miami also went to Birmingham a few years ago, getting Michael Jackson from Spain Park, who still plays for the Seattle Seahawks professionally. So, a lot of people, when they hear Alabama, they think, all right, well, the good guys are going to go to Alabama and Auburn. Don't waste your time in Alabama. Why is it, do you think, that teams like Miami should be recruiting Alabama players like they are?
I think we have a lot of kids that's not afraid to leave the state. I know Auburn, Alabama is big here, and I'm not going to knock that. But I think we have a lot of talent so much that a lot of kids can leave the state. In recent years, some of that has happened. And actually, I know Michael Jackson well. Actually, he finished Spain Park, and he graduated from Parker. He finished his second semester here. And so I know his family well, and so that's a good friend. And also Inez Cooper, a starting lineman. He's from Alabama. We played against him, and I know him well. So there's some guys down there from Alabama that has talent that Auburn, Alabama might not get. And so it always, Miami, when I was growing up, was the spot. And so I think they're almost there again. That's how I feel with the culture we have from the culture and the coaching. So it's going to be back at the U. Going to be very soon.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Inez Cooper. He might be one of the best players on the team, period. I think he's poised to have a monster year. And, the IQ of all 3 of the guys that are here at the University of Miami have stood out, kind of IQ wise. They learn the plays quick. They're ready to play quick. It hasn't been a big adjustment in terms of from the high school level of Alabama to college. Although Inez Cooper started as a freshman, I think these other 2 are going to play a bit. Timothy, we're talking about his IQ. In terms of just the football in Alabama, the way what these guys are asked to do, it's not just like they're running around, right? It's a high level of football that's being played.
Yeah, of course. In Alabama, man, that's what we do down here, play football. So when we get down to Alabama, and football is just the number 1 thing down here behind religion, God. So God and football, that's what they say down here. And just us growing up here, man, playing in Alabama, man, it's one of the best states. I feel like top 5 around the nation of football, which is per talent that you're going to get. And so I think Merritt is one of those guys that will be special down there and be one of the ones who hopefully we have a pipeline from Birmingham to Miami.
Now, I understand he has a basketball background as well. Is he someone that you took from the basketball court to the football team, or is he playing both, since you've known him? How has his athletic journey been as far as, kind of you first setting eyes on him and to where he is now?
So I got hired, the COVID hit, so they shut down all the middle school sports. So I actually had him playing JV in the 8th grade, quarterback. He was kind of like a Lamar Jackson type, and he playing basketball. And I kind of told him, I said, look, man, I said, ain't nothing wrong playing basketball, but you don't see a lot of 6'2", guards. You come play this football, and we actually moved him to DB his 10th grade. And I'm like, look, this is where you're going to be, and you can play in the NFL one day. And he really even trust the process. And his talent level, he think he just best thing since sliced bread, his confidence. So, yeah, turn down the shot he think he can't make, and you feel like he can guard anybody.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, off the field, you've mentioned his swag. We talked about his IQ on the field. Tell us a little bit more about the person that Miami is getting.
They're getting a smart individual, confident guy. He's going to be himself, which I tell my kids all the time, always be yourself. Don't change for nobody, but I always respect. He's a respectful kid. Grew up in a nice family. His mom is one of the sweetest ladies that you'll know. He grew up in the church. He got that background, but he has that little, swagger by himself. And, he brings it on and off the field. He's a natural leader. For who he is, and he kind of brings the energy for the defense. So he's one of those leader type of kids.
Now, Miami's coaching staff, obviously, they prioritize Timothy. We mentioned it a month ago that this guy was, sky high on the board, even though not everybody on the outside knew how much Miami wanted him. the coaching staff. Coach Cristobal, heavy presence in Miami, in Alabama from his time there. Chevis Jackson is from there. Do you have any experience with Miami's coaching staff, either in this recruitment process or in general?
I've been been a relationship with Coach Jackson about a couple of years ago, man. We always been a solid guy. And actually, Cristobal actually came in January on a helicopter here. So he's been heavy in Alabama since I know him, since he got a job a couple of years ago. I got to actually had a DN. That's pretty big time. That's actually coming to Alabama. They were recruiting. But he had made his presence on here when he dropped in on the helicopter, and it was kind of cool scene here. So those guys been a relationship with, man. It's been a blessing. And hopefully in the years to come, that means I'm doing something right if I have to keep talking to those guys about players. So that was some good guys. Coach Jackson, he's a great relationship builder, and he sees talent. And, he just felt like Tim was one of the ones that could come play here at Miami. And I feel the same way.
Well, look at some of the athletes in this class, the record of the team. I think this is you're a good guy for the coaching staff to know. And again, appreciate you joining us and giving us some insight. Best of luck with summer workouts and the season.
Man, I really appreciate you for having me.
Take care.
Yeah. This an insight to the Canes, and we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you. And nobody do it like CanesInSight. 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 It's CanesInSight.